And and we're recording. So I am interviewing. It's my stepdad Tom. He's on speakerphone. Woo! So we're gonna get going here. So
All right, ready when you are.
awesome. Here we go. Tom, how important have sports been to your life? Like in the grand scheme of things, like how big of an impact would you say? Like, does that make sense?
Well, yeah, I understand. If I understand the question right, then sports is something that you follow the seasons with, and it's uh, important to a standpoint of you always know when it's football season and when the championship games are, or basketball season when the championship, hockey season when the championship games, and baseball season. So from that standpoint, it's kind of a marking of time and the subject of conversation when the seasons are going and which teams are in first and second and things like that.
Yeah, that's something I've always found important too. Is being able to know like what's going on, just so that you can talk to people about it. Just
Yep, it has a social aspect, even if you're not there or seeing the game, you might see it on TV or read about it in the paper, and it gives you something to talk about at the water cooler or at lunch or whatever.
yeah, that's always been big. I mean, it's good to meet new people that way, and it's something that I know a lot of guys. You can just start conversations, especially during football season. You can just ask them if they saw the game that weekend, and you're off
It's
and
a common
running.
experience, and it's something that you can share. So if there's something you found exciting about it, if you talk to somebody else, and they'll find the same thing exciting or point out different things, and you say, "Oh yeah, that's right, I remember that." So it gives you this common base of conversation.
Yeah, and you get to share your opinions and share like even before playoff series. Like I picked the Spurs in 6. I don't watch basketball at all, but I threw my hat in the ring just to have some fun. It's that kind of thing that I've always found is important, to just being able to connect with random people.
Yep. And plus you have your allegiances, of a particular team that you might follow, so that they become more important to you and near and dear to your heart. So, okay, that's something that you want to follow and you want to be up on, and you want to brag about it when your team wins, and if your team doesn't win, you want to say how you got cheated by the referee or whatever.
It's always the refs. Oh. So, who would you say most influenced you in becoming interested in sports?
Mm, probably, um, probably the I don't know, the peer group when you're a lot younger, then it's something that your friends would talk about things or be interested in things. So you would I don't know, your friends kind of get it, and you get it to a certain extent from your family. So if your family was a baseball family, then you might talk about it with your friends, and you'd influence them, and vice versa. So that all of a sudden, okay, so you'd have an interest in baseball, whether it was watching the games, talking about the games, or collecting baseball cards, or just playing baseball yourself because you wanted to be like those people. And then as you get, that's grade school ages, and when you get into high school and college, you might, develop an allegiance. But again, it's your friends that kind of drive you forward because, well, that's why you're friends, because you have common interest, whether it's baseball, basketball, hockey, whatever it is. Then you each have an influence on each other, and you gravitate to the people that like the same things you like.
Yeah, I found that I see what you're saying, and I've actually seen it play out recently. I have a buddy who I made within the last 5 years who's a big baseball guy, and I've never been a big baseball guy, and now I find myself listening to the games and watching and caring. I never cared, so I could
Yeah.
definitely see how peer groups would
So
definitely.
as you go on too, when you I don't know, as you start working at different places, when somebody is so excited or enthusiastic about something, then okay, that becomes a beginning to start a conversation. And when they start talking about the game, you might get interested in the game, and it's like, oh, okay, so you read up on it in the paper or hear about a exciting play or a statistic or standings or whatever it might be, and then, okay, you would get interested in it. So
Yeah.
I don't have one particular person, but it's just the people around you and people that bring passion to it, then that kind of spills over to you.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's the passion around you, absolutely. Especially with football. Football's nuts. So let's go on to the next one. Do you have a particular athlete who you greatly admired when you were young, and then why?
Well, when I was real young, we had a passion for the Detroit Tigers, and so
Okay.
Tigers, when they won the World Series in 1968, way back when, well, every one of our friends, everybody kind of picked a Tiger that they thought was, their favorite. So,
Okay.
I remember one friend, Bill Freehan was his favorite. Another one, Mickey Lolich. Well, for me, it was Al Kaline. So Al Kaline was a outfielder, Hall of Famer, and he was unique because he was drafted at age 18 by the Tigers, and he, played right out of high school basically for the farm club and the Tigers. He really went right to the Tigers, not so much on the farm club. But anyway, and so he was instrumental in helping them win the World Series in '68, and so that was a childhood favorite of mine. So not only is it him, but if you ask me what my favorite number was at the time, I'd say number 6 because Al Kaline was number 6. So,
it's funny you say that. My favorite number the last 10 years or so, whenever anybody's asked, it's been 19. Just because I got to watch TV. It's funny.
So that was the thing. So, that would be the biggest sports figure, as a kid, was Al Kaline.
Al Kaline. I like it. Was there like a particular reason it was Al Kaline, or just because you wanted?
Well, because we all, when we were kids, the biggest sport really around was baseball. Everybody played baseball. And so, okay, we gravitated to the home team, and because they won the World Series, it's like, well, baseball was it. So, baseball, when everybody was picking somebody that was their favorite, just to say, hey, my guy's better than your guy, or whatever it might be, well, they all picked different people, and I happened to pick Al Kaline. So.
I like it. I mean, he's got his number retired, right, by the Tigers? I know it's like sacrilege. I don't know that, but.
Yep. Number 6, his name is in the outfield, so.
Yeah, he picked a good guy then.
Big players at the time were Al Kaline, Willie Horton, Denny McClain, Mickey Lolich, and Bill Freehan.
Wow.
And Gage Bound, Ike Bound. But anyway, they were all the big names from back then, so every one of the kids would pick a different one that was their favorite. And we tried to imitate them, like when we were batting, how they stood. We were playing baseball, we were trying to hold the bat the same way, and, things like that.
Yeah, the little things. Especially when you're young, that's how it goes. So let's go on to the next one. What was your greatest memory of playing or watching sports? Let's do one when you're, let's say, younger than 20, and one when you're older than 20. We'll split it down the middle for you.
Let's see. Probably being, younger than 20.
Well, ballpark.
Well, just playing. I mean, we played, in high school, we played high school hockey, and we won a championship. And
oh, wow.
That was a lot of fun. So that was a blast. So I guess the whole season, and coming from a smaller school, beating bigger schools that had bigger names and stuff like that, that was a lot of fun.
That's always fun.
That would be the best memory under 20. Over 20, I don't know. I guess the strongest memories. I mean, you can think of championships and things like that, but I think more when you're in college and you're closer to it, because everybody goes to the football games and things.
Mm-hmm.
So even though I went to Central Michigan, not a Big Ten school or top in the country or anything like that, but the memory of going to the games and traveling to the away games and things like that. So not any one particular memory because there's not like a big championship game or anything, but just going to those games with the whole group of people that all thought the same way and had that passion and enthusiasm. That was probably the best memories.
Yeah, those are good ones. I've had a couple of those at MSU games. Just you look up and there's another 40,000 people screaming for the same team. It's kind of a cool feeling. I can see.
That goes back to what we said earlier about there's a camaraderie to it. There's this common experience that everybody has, and you all kind of share it, so it all kind of makes you similar. So you can all kind of relate to it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it binds you all together. It's a weird kind of bond that people get through sports. It's like a silent, I'm your brother almost. It's a little weird. But...
Exactly. Especially when you're rooting for the same team, so that's another thing. So not only that, but it's like watching your favorite movie. Everybody will bring back the line that they quote. And, remember that part? Remember that part? And if it's a really good movie, then you talk about it for a while. Same thing with the sporting event. It's really a live movie that you're watching. And when you're there, or even if it's on TV, it's like watching a movie. And then everybody remembers certain parts as being the most important, or the things they thought were the coolest, or the best play, or the worst call, or whatever it might be. And everybody can kind of relate to it.
Yeah. I've even had that. Now that I'm thinking about it, I've had that kind of camaraderie with a couple guys that weren't the same fans as me. Like I had the pleasure of sitting next to a Chicago fan a couple times at Wings games and meeting different hockey fans along the way. You want to beat them, but you also have like an underlying almost respect, I suppose, of that same camaraderie. Only obviously it's like an extra degree of separation almost. But yeah, it's kind of a cool feeling. So on that same kind of note, I didn't mean to interrupt you. You gonna say anything?
No, go ahead.
Cool. All right, let's keep going. What was your greatest disappointment in playing or watching sports? So was there one moment that sticks out in your mind that like, dang, I don't ever want to relive that ever again?
Well, I don't have a particular moment, but I mean, I can think of back in the good days of the 70s, 80s, and watching the Red Wings. We would sometimes at school the games are blacked out, like when we were in college. We would drive, to go to a closed circuit game or the late broadcast game, and just watching them play and watching they would make it to the playoffs and then to watch them, just to lose when you really wanted them to win because they hadn't won, been successful in getting to the cup or to the finals and so on. And then, each year watching the disappointment, it's just the heartbreak of wanting them so bad to win, but the reality was they weren't good enough to win, but you would admit that to yourself because they were your favorite team and you wanted them to go forward.
I don't know what you're talking about. They're always good enough to win. It's those refs.
So, well, you always think they are, but it's like you're looking back and like, they could have better this or better that, but whatever. At the time, that's why it's disappointing because you think they can win. So.
Yeah. Yeah, hindsight's 20/20, but right now it hurts.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So just watching those struggle years, it was tough. That's why when they won their first cup, that's why it was so. That was a great feeling because they finally overcame all that disappointment. Yeah,
it's a little weird. I wasn't a fan back then, but now I almost kind of don't get that. If they reach the cup, or like, I guess I would get it if it was. Well, the Lions would be a prime example. If the Lions win the Super Bowl, I can imagine.
It was kind of the same way when the Wings, won back in, was it 87, I guess? Anyway, their first time they won the cup, and I don't know how long. It's just like you just wanted to stand up and cheer. You wanted to go out and celebrate. That's different phase of my life. I went and drove downtown just to celebrate with everybody, just because it was so long.
Oh yeah.
It's just a passion where you just feel like you wanna cheer.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Yeah. That'll be a cool day. That's got to be something. I'm extremely jealous that I missed out on that. So in a way. I think I remember seeing it, but I don't remember appreciating it at all. So I'm very jealous. But it definitely sounds like a cool moment. All right, let's go to the next one.
Absolutely.
Woo. So I think you kind of answered this one. I'm gonna hit it anyway. So what sport do you care about the most, and do you know why?
Hmm. Well, for me, kind of a toss-up between baseball and hockey, and if I was to pick one, I would say hockey.
Aha.
And part of the reason why is because as a kid, it's something that I played as a kid and really enjoyed playing, and really enjoy watching because I feel like I have a better understanding having done it some myself.
Okay.
And watching it and watching the players and when you're younger you collect the hockey cards or baseball cards or whatever it is, so you kind of have some history with it. And so when Mickey Redmond is talking on the game, you're like, oh yeah, I remember when Mickey Redmond was playing. So it's like, okay, it gives you a different perspective, or you can appreciate who Gordie Howe is. He's a little before my time, but it's like, I know Gordie Howe. And
Yeah.
remember when he came back and played with his son and stuff like that. So it's like, okay, so you have a different appreciation, which makes it something that's your favorite and something you want to follow, especially with the success of the Red Wings over the last few years. It's like, that's really good. It's awesome. It gives you something more to cheer about.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you still have any of those cards? Your old school.
The old cards that I still have some baseball cards, but not hockey cards. Hockey cards are not very
Yeah.
in style way back when. People didn't, we had them, but we didn't collect them like we collected baseball cards because there's just more kids our age that have baseball cards.
Mhm. That makes sense. Yeah, I always felt like baseball cards got more of a, I don't know, they were almost put on a pedestal somehow of, the card, and the other cards kind of followed suit, but it wasn't. They're not baseball cards. They're it's just
And
hockey
you
cards.
couldn't find them. It's like you went to the party store and they had baseball cards and that was it. To us, there was no such thing as football cards, even though they probably existed, but we couldn't find them. And hockey cards you can find anywhere. The only ones you can find are baseball cards. So that was what you collected.
You can just tape little skates on the baseball players. Just tape right on the card.
Well, anyway.
Throw them out on the ice. Teach them how to skate.
Yeah. That's what we did. I mean, we weren't playing baseball. We were in the alley playing hockey, just in our tennis shoes. So
Yeah.
it was fun.
Yeah, good. So second to last one. I'll let you go in a little bit here. But how do you think sports have changed from the time you were young? So
Well, it's become a lot more commercialized, but that's part of it. There's too much. There's so much money involved in it. You can just see it's another way to take money from people. But it's just the way sports changed from the 70s to the 80s and 90s because back in the 50s and 60s, people didn't make a lot of money playing sports. They played. They enjoyed it. They loved it. This and that. But it seemed like even into the 70s and probably through the 70s, it seems like a mediocre guy who had a lot of passion and worked really hard at it could probably, if he had a little bit of talent, he had a chance. He could make it, semi-professional, professional. I mean, there's people that they got into professional sports based on desire, which exceeded their talent. Well, as time went on and things got more, I don't know, standardized or science got involved or what have you, well now, the people that play sports are like, they're all gifted athletes for the most part. And they're the biggest and the tallest and the strongest and just to see these guys, the average size of a player and the average speed of a player, whether it's football or hockey or baseball, whatever it is, it's like, oh my gosh, it's such a level that an average person would have a very difficult time getting into a professional sport.
Yeah.
Whereas you go back, to the 1970s and 60s, an average person might be able to get into a professional sport. They'd have to have some talent.
Yeah.
Not everybody can get in, but anyway, nowadays athletes are true athletes. These guys, they're scouting the high schools and they're picking people that they're 5 inches taller than everybody else, and so much faster. And by the time they get through college, they're going pro. Well, that's a lot different from the way I perceived it anyway, from lots of years ago. So sports have changed, and the athletes are truly, and it's international now too, because in the past, okay, you got to play baseball in Cleveland or Detroit or something like that. Well, you're probably a kid from the USA that grew up playing Little League. Well, now, heck, you can come from Venezuela and South America and Mexico and wherever else. These guys can all come up and they're playing ball because, again, they're scouted and it's like they're the best of the best. And so, you think of the number of people that play sports as kids and the very few that ever make it to the professional level. It's like, well, so it kind of changed. It's becoming more international. Even hockey players. Canada used to be the core of all hockey players. Almost everybody came from Canada. Well, now, you got guys from Sweden, Czechoslovakia, from Russia, from, U.S., from all over the place. So the number of, just Canadians, well, it's smaller because there's a bigger pool of people to choose from, and so the best of the best are the ones that are getting picked. So sports has changed a lot as far as who can really make it as a professional sports player. And the gap between an average guy and a professional is much wider than I think it was a long time ago.
Yeah, I think that's I was gonna bring up the globalization thing, and now I had a point that I can't think of. But that's the globalization. The guys from all over. That's just as driven by money too, because now I want to buy the best players, and we'll ship them from Japan or from anywhere. It's a money and it's all a money grab now. I have to imagine it was much less of a money grab, to use a phrase, back in the day. But I don't.
Well, it's very different. There was an excellent show that was on TV about way back in the early 70s. I believe it was 73 when the Canadian hockey players played the Russian hockey players in an exhibition because the Cold War was still going on and stuff. And so when the Russians all came over, those guys were, they trained brutally. They were running, lifting weights. They were watching their diet and everything else. Well, the Canadian players, the style of play wasn't as physical. It wasn't so dependent on being this tip-top, in-shape athlete. So when they played each other, the two styles were totally different.
Yeah.
Just completely different. And I think that is kind of a contrast of the difference, whereas now everybody's kind of train on the weight machines, get the diet, do the running, do the exercise, do the weightlifting, do all that. They're all truly more athletes, whereas the passion guy that made up for it with his enthusiasm, that's a little different. So, but there was a special that talked about the all-star Canadians when they played the Russians at exhibition games, and the Russians totally surprised them. That was really kind of sets the difference between the athletes of today and the athletes before. And as you globalize it, those gifted athletes that have that talent, they can run the faster quarter mile, they're taller, they can jump higher, and throw the ball farther, or whatever it might be. You got a bigger group to choose from, and so that means a more select group of people are in professional sports.
Yeah. It's almost to the point where those guys that make it on sheer determination and not so much skill, but just because they try extra hard, those guys are rare in their stories in themselves. They make, well, not front page news. That's mostly just Tim Tebow, but those guys those 1 in a million guys make you read article after article about them now. They're just rare.
Yep. Yep. You don't get Rudy every day anymore.
Yeah, you don't get Rudy every day. So last one, and then I'll let you get going here. Uh, so the question is, do sports matter, and in what ways? So I'll leave it. So, do sports matter?
Well, in our society anyway, it's a cultural thing. I mean, everybody in some way, shape, or form is either aware of or touched by or involved in or at least appraised of what's going on in different sports. Maybe not all sports, maybe not in all ways, but it's like, okay, it's a social thing where it's something that you talk about. It's something that you can be interested in, and we try to imitate our sports heroes, whether it's Tiger Woods, and we're going to go out and try and golf ourselves, or whether it's watching the Tigers play and being on a softball team, or whether it's playing floor hockey or field hockey, watching the hockey players or playing pickup basketball. It's like, well, that sports, that idea of a team is one whole thing. That whole idea of backing the home team or backing your favorite team, that's something too, and it all melts together in a social thing. So it's like, well, it matters culturally to us in the United States. Is that true, throughout the world? I don't know, different degrees in different places, I suppose. But in our culture, in the United States, especially the more urbanized you live, it's like, well, yeah, it does matter because it's something that brings people together. It's something that it can be a point of focus. Some people live, eat, and breathe, a certain sport. And some people it doesn't matter, but even if it doesn't matter to you, you're touched by it because there's so many people around you that it does have some matter to.
I think even those guys that don't particularly care for sports, it matters. It's something that you're right, exactly what you were saying. That it's so much around you that it's almost unavoidable. Outside of probably Alaska and stuff like that, but
even there, I mean, I don't think there's anybody that doesn't have some inkling when they talk about the Super Bowl. You're either talking about the teams or you're talking about the commercials. And you know what's going on a particular weekend because there's so much that goes around it. Now, a lot of that's because of how commercial it's become and the money around it and the advertising and all the other things. But it doesn't matter what the reasons are. I suppose that it has an impact on you because of the awareness of it. And there's so much in the newspapers and on the radio, and whether it's getting in a pool to, or buying squares or something crazy like that, doesn't matter because somehow it affects you. Somehow it impacts you. Maybe not directly, but at least indirectly.
Yeah. And then there's that whole side of it too where, those kids grow up watching the Tom Brady's and the Peyton Mannings and the Al Kalines, and you're exactly what you were saying. You imitate them. You grow up wanting to emulate them almost in every way, I suppose, would be so. I mean, it affects more than meets the eye, I suppose, would be the way to say it. Just being able to being able to like look around and see kids, grabbing a stick a certain way or grabbing, hitting a certain way. So I think it matters more than people would suggest as well. Like it obviously depends. Like, okay, so there's the money side and there's the social side, and they kind of just let it go there as entertainment on a Wednesday night, But it's more than just, it's more than what's the commercial? It's more than just hockey or something like that, or it's more. It's always more than just a game. It's a lot more.
Yeah, that's and again, it's part of our culture, and we're trained when we're all through school. What do? I mean, whether it's high school, it's the homecoming. Well, there's a football game somehow surrounding it. So it's like, oh, okay. And, on the weekend, it's an activity. If you're in the band, what do? The band plays at the games. If you're a cheerleader, you're cheering at the game. if you're, you know, a player, you're playing at the game. If you're a student, you're going to watch the game.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, we're trained that way. You get into college, and it's a similar thing, on a much bigger scale, but it's like, okay, it's something that you can all relate to, and then from there, you know, it goes from there. So in any event, it's you know, it's something that it's a cultural thing, something that kind of woven its way right into our upbringing, and we can recognize it or not, but it's still there.
Absolutely. Well, I'm all set on my end. Anything else? Anything you've thought of that you want to point into?
No, I think I hope I helped. I hope I gave you the answers that help you, and wish you the best with the project.
Thanks. I just want to thank you, and I'm gonna stop recording in a second here. So I guess thank you and bye.